Hi, welcome back guys. This is your sensei, back with another fanfiction. This is the movie of What If Naruto Find Himself in Harem. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. In a certain dimension between worlds, the Shinigami, who has taken the identity as 4, is playing a game of shogi with her cousin Jashin, the goddess of chaos and mayhem. The two had a good relationship since they often were involved hand in hand with countless calamities and disasters. Plus, they loved to piss off Kami if only for their own amusement. Jashin held the base appearance of a punk rocker, having a black mohawk swept to one side, with 2 piercings on her right ear and another on the center of her lower lip. She wore a black biker jacket that was open at the front, which barely covered her tattooed cleavage, especially since she was not wearing a shirt. She wore faded jeans that were torn in several places along her thighs and kneecaps. For footwear, she wore black biker boots. Why do you choose such an unrefined form, cousin? The Shinigami asked as she claimed a piece from Jashin's side of the board. Goddess of chaos. Figured I'd pick a form that fit the theme. Anyways, if you don't mind, I am gonna up Kami's child of prophecy sh she asked with a smile that held fake innocence. Do as you wish. I look forward to the results of your games. The Shinigami replied while her blue and orange eyes glowed in amusement. With a nod, Jashin snapped her fingers to throw off the threads of fate in the Narutoverse, and add in some mayhem. Somewhere in Konoha, Naruto yawned and awakened in unfamiliar settings. He found himself in an expensive-looking apartment that was most definitely a sharp contrast to his own. He was in a bed with a warm and fuzzy blanket of some kind. He then noticed his arm was in the clutches of a sleeping female figure. Her skin and hair was all snowy white. From the looks of her, he believed she was what's called an albino. He carefully slipped from his grip and found that he was only in his boxers and his clothes were nowhere to be found. How was he here? Who brought him? His mind reeled with questions as he slowly tiptoed about to avoid waking up the girl in the bed. He saw a picture on a windowsill and picked it up. The albino girl was on it, as well as others. Above them was a sign that read Konoha's Home for Troubled Women. He had heard rumors about this place. It was a mental facility for women who were mentally ill. Anyone from across the nations was brought here, but not just anyone could enter since it wasn't open to the general public. He hadn't heard of any incidents with the patients. Then again, he didn't know much about this place beyond his limited knowledge and hearsay. Awake, I see, asked a sultry voice from behind him. He slowly turned around and was met with an exotic-looking woman wearing a white blouse and short pink skirt. She gave a small curtsy and spoke sorry for the suddenness of everything. I imagine you are scared and confused, but trust me when I say that you aren't in any kind of danger. He sighed in relaxation, sensing no deception in her voice, and then asked her, all right, I'm Naruto Uzumaki. But who are you and why was I brought here? She sat down in a lounge chair, obviously not bothered by the lack of clothing on him, then replied, Shoko Sugimoto, at your service. Medical practitioner. And you were brought here because there was a gas leak at your apartment. We decided to rescue you before something unfortunate happened. I fear that your apartment is now quite non-existent. At the end of her explanation, she tossed him a change of clothes and exited the room while carrying the sleeping girl from the bed. She turned slightly and spoke, get changed. The others will be expecting you. He blushed a bit and he changed into what seems to be a male nurse's outfit, complete with a white lab coat. He left the room and found himself in a long hallway. As he explored a bit, he found that the rooms for the patients were quite spacious, about the size of a small apartment, though he didn't see any facilities besides a bathroom and shower, meaning that they must eat and activities in another part of the facility. He said to himself as he walked down the hallway until he came across a doorway with the sign Rec Room above it. He opened the doors and found numerous female figures inside, including Shoko and the still unnamed albino girl. The women were strewn about the room. Some were standing near a pool table, chalking their cues. Others sat at a table playing cards. 2 others were at another table playing shogi. Another was sitting in the corner reading a book. And the others seemed to be watching TV while indulging in various snacks. Ladies, perhaps we should introduce ourselves and why we're here. I shall start. I am Shoko Sugimoto. I have some nymphomania problems and I like young boys. Usually about your age, Naruto-kun. The medical practitioner spoke with a small smile. Wait, I thought you were a nurse here. Naruto asked while scratching at his cheek. I said I was a medical practitioner. I never said that I was a nurse. Next please, Shoko asked at the end while gesturing for someone else to speak up. A woman wearing a straight jacket stood up, with long black hair and dark circles under her eyes giving her a tired appearance. Hiroko Komori. I killed a lot of people, and I'm a lesbian, so deal with it. She spoke out then sat back down while grumbling. We had to put her in that jacket so we wouldn't be raped in our sleep. Now she's kind of cranky, she can't feel us up. Shoko explained with a giggle, causing Hiroko to stick her tongue out angrily and turn towards the television with a huff. A girl with pink hair at the card table raised her hand and spoke, I am Unogasai. I am here because I murdered my parents. Naruto sweat dropped at how casually she said it, though he couldn't help but wonder what was her reason, assuming there was one. Another one at the card table raised her hand. She had blue hair and wore a military cap on her head. Esdef. General Esdef. I killed people, tortured them, conquered entire regions single-handedly. I got bored of it all, so I came here on a whim. Call it a hiatus or vacation. She spoke in a much too casual tone. A woman with red hair prayed quietly, then spoke out with a rather alluring accent. My name is Liliana. I was a spy, an assassin, and other things. I committed crimes and have been subject to tortures and betrayals. Now I spend my days here with my cell sisters. When she finished her brief introduction, she resumed her prayers, making Naruto feel a little sorry for her. He wondered what of scars she bore. Another pink-haired girl raised her hand, only she had what looked horns on her head. Lucy. I killed people and stayed in their homes. She spoke in a very blunt manner before returning her attention to the television. The albino girl bounded up to Naruto and gleefully shook his hand while yelling, "Hi, I'm Shiro. I'm so glad you're okay. I'll start calling you Senpai." The Jinchuriki sweat dropped a bit. Aside from her extremely happy demeanor, he didn't know why she was here. But then, maybe this was only on the surface. A blonde woman with a somewhat stern expression then raised her hand. Annie Leonhardt. All I'll tell you is that I killed people. She spoke bluntly and turned away from the whiskered teen. Another blonde woman sauntered up to Naruto and spoke to him while gently caressing his cheek. Medusa Gorgon. I performed experiments on my child. You look like you might be good. Genetic material. She whispered with a deceptively charming smile before walking away, leaving a blushing teen. Another blonde girl cartwheeled up to him. Her face was painted in reminiscence of a clown minus the big red nose. Hello cutie, I'm Harley Quinn. I'm here cause I fell for the wrong guy. She introduced herself with a wink, then back-flipped away, showing off her gymnastic abilities, which gave a clear view of her panties for a brief moment. A girl with auburn hair carrying a dog-like creature approached next and spoke. I am Suryu, General Ezeth's subordinate and a warrior of justice. I was put here because I fed criminals to Korokan. She presented the creature in her arms that had a muzzle on it. She also has a rape fetish, commented Ezeth with a teasing grin. This made Suryu blush and scream out in denial. I do not have a rape fetish. This made Naruto sweat drop and sigh. This day was getting weirder and weirder. He was tapped on the shoulder by someone, causing him to turn, and was met by a woman with black hair and blue eyes. Nico Robin, at your service. I suppose that I'm here because my village was destroyed. She spoke in a slightly pained voice before a smile appeared and she patted the blonde on the head. Then another blonde woman showed up while chugging back some booze. Call me Leon, and this cutie here is Akem. We're assassins. She introduced herself, then pulled a girl with black hair and red eyes into view, who gave a small wave. A purple-haired girl carrying a wooden sword approached and gave a small bow. Seiko Busujima. I am here because a man attempted to rape me, then I beat him in self-defense, and I enjoyed nearly killing him. She spoke at the end while sensually licking her lips, which sent a small shiver down Naruto's spine. Naruto then took notice of the woman sitting in the corner, still reading her book. She briefly looked up, revealing her silver eyes, then resumed her reading. That's Claire. Don't take any offense, she doesn't talk much to anyone. Akane clarified for Naruto. Well, that's everyone. I hope you don't mind having a roommate or two, Naruto-kun. Shoko spoke with a sultry smile, giving the boy a small wink. After the introductions had finished, the whiskered teen looked about and noticed something wrong. Wait a second. Where's all the staff? If this is a home for troubled women, shouldn't there be guards or attendees or nurses or doctors hanging around? And Shakasan, earlier you said that we rescued you. Does that mean you can just leave whenever you want? He asked while slowly putting the pieces together. Oh yes. Well, there aren't any staff. It's just us here. A rather large stipend is mailed to us to cover expenses and such things. We can come and go whenever we like. To everyone else we may as well be ghosts. Leon smelled gas in your apartment and we rescued you, then brought you here. Shoko answered with a small smile. Leon gave a quick thumbs up to her fellow blonde. He nodded in thanks and spoke out. Well, I guess I owe you one. If you don't mind me staying here, then I'll be sure to clean up and that kind of stuff. You aren't scared of us? Claire asked as she set aside her book for the moment. Claire talked, yelled Suryu while pointing at the silver-eyed woman. I am not mute, she answered and walked towards the whiskered teen with slow and measured steps towards him. She now stood over him, looking down with her piercing silver eyes. It seemed as if she was trying to dissect him with her eyes. He swallowed hard, then answered her question from before. I dunno. Maybe a little, but I don't think you're all bad. From his tone, it was obvious that he was telling the truth. Claire leaned down and planted her lips on his for a few brief moments. This made the others give off brief wolf whistles. When she released the Jinchuriki, she clarified the reason for her action. I had to be sure of something. She then returned to her corner and began reading her book. The rest of her cell sisters' sweat dropped since they hadn't heard Claire speak so much. Ever. He blushed hard at the interaction, then asked them, okay, but since no one's guarding you or keeping you locked up in here, why don't you just leave? Why should we? We have nowhere to go. Nowhere that will accept us. Here, we have free room and board, plentiful food, a strange little community where we don't judge each other. And we get cable. I like Boomerang. Robin answered with a small smile. Gotta appreciate the classics. Kuroko commented while wiggling in her straitjacket, obviously trying to find a way to free herself so she can feel up her fellow inmates. Naruto couldn't help but sweat drop again at how casual these women were. He then looked up at the clock and realized that he was running late for the academy. Sorry everyone, but I gotta run. See you later, he yelled as he ran out the door, leaving behind the various females. Phew, what an energetic child. I kind of like him. Maybe we should let him stay permanently, Medusa pointed out with a small smile on her face. You just want to experiment on him, don't you? Asked Shoko with her usual sultry smile, but her eyes held a sharp edge to them. At her accusation the blonde witch merely shrugged. Lucy HM'd quietly to herself, then she headed towards the kitchen and began preparing a bento for the boy. Knowing that he would go hungry without it, she didn't even know why she was preparing a lunch for him. Maybe because that he didn't call her a monster for what she did. It felt nice to not be judged. Everyone here has something they're guilty of. But Naruto was quite innocent. Innocent. All of a sudden, she began to feel an empty space in her. With Naruto, the blonde finally arrived at the academy and dashed through the halls to his classroom. Standing in the middle left the hall was a girl with crimson hair. From her expression and the fact she was looking at a set of directions, she seemed a little bit lost. He sighed since he couldn't in good conscience leave a woman helpless. He stopped and turned to her asking, "Excuse me, ma'am. You need some help?" She turned to him with a smile and replied, "Yes. I'm afraid that the directions I was provided are confusing. Could you help me find this classroom?" she asked while pointing to the designated classroom she was trying to find. "I can. That's actually my classroom. I was on my way there myself." "Are you a transfer student?" the blonde asked as he began to guide her to his class, a smile appearing on his face since he thought that he might make a friend by making a good first impression. "Yes, I am. I appreciate the help. My name is Riaz Gremory." "And you are?" she asked while following. She found his choice of clothes a bit strange. Was he a doctor or something of the like? A volunteer nurse? She chose not to comment on it since she didn't want to be rude. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki, and don't mind the clothes. I am borrowing them since my apartment had a gas leak." He spoke with a chuckle, but then he realized he had said a little too much. He then noticed she had a faraway look in her eyes. They seemed out of focus and her face became somewhat flushed. "Ryusen, are you okay?" he asked her in slight concern. Without warning, she threw herself onto him and pinned him to the ground. A pair of bat-like wings appeared on her back as she panted much like a dog in heat. "You, what have you done to me? My body feels so hot I feel like I'm burning up inside. What kind of spell did you inflict on me? I feel like I'm going to die," she yelled as her grip tightened around the whiskered teen's arms. Sweat began to pour from her forehead as she began to tremble. He couldn't even form an appropriate response since he had no idea what was happening. "You think you can subjugate a purebred devil with this low-level spell? You must be some kind of pervert that uses this trick to molest women. Die like the pervert you are," she yelled out and pressed her bust against Naruto's face in an attempt to smother him. He was surprised by the action and his face blushed despite the abnormal circumstances. "Does it feel good, Hentei-kun? Or are you suffering from lack of air?" she spoke in a taunting tone. He tried to wriggle free, but she was much too strong for him. She cackled and pressed her bust down harder onto his face to ensure he couldn't receive any life-giving oxygen. But for some reason her body kept growing hotter. Her mind was in a daze and she felt like her loins were about to burn through her panties. Speaking of which, a dark and damp spot was appearing in her panties without her knowledge. "You pant, stupid hentai, I won't lose. Wheeze to a weak spell, I won't be your pleasure slave," she proclaimed in a raspy voice, her mind becoming a haze as she felt her insides turning into jelly. Whatever this stranger was doing, it was highly effective. She could tell that his pheromones was driving her mating instincts wild. She had to end him before she devolved into his pet slut. "Gr. Gremorison," spoke a male voice. She turned her head and saw what was to be her new class staring slack-jawed at her. Many had blushes on their faces while others whispered about her being the dead last slut. The Chunin with a scar across the bridge of his nose glared at the redhead. Words weren't needed to express what he was thinking. The devil girl teared up slightly. Her reputation was ruined before it had even developed. She just wanted to pass off as an ordinary girl and love amongst humans in relative peace. Now her chances were ruined, prompting her to scream out in despair. "Later, you asshole jerk hentai, you ruined me. Now I'm a social outcast on my first day no less," she screamed at Naruto while attempting to throttle him in the academy grounds. She had to bottle up her fury and shame after that debacle, and she could easily hear the whispers behind her back as well as the stares from the teachers for the lewd display earlier. Now she just wanted to take out her fury on the root of the problem. She released her grip slightly, which let him reply back, "I don't even know what happened. You threw yourself on me and acted all weird. You even tried to smother me with your S." In response, she roared angrily and chucked him into a tree, though she was in enough control to not have killed him. Naruto yelped out in pain as his back slammed hard against a tree trunk. He then hid behind it, despite it not really going to help him. He then leaned out and asked, "I noticed the wings earlier. Was that some kind of henge or jinjutsu?" he asked her in an attempt to distract her, though he also wondered why no one else had noticed. "No, you idiot, I don't need to use those crude ninjutsu techniques you ninjas do. I am a devil, and since you resulted in my humiliation, I demand you let me crush your testicles. That'll end your career as a pervert," she yelled while pointing at him, a dark grin on her face showing that her threat was serious. "You tried to kill me with your ass and I'm the pervert. Look who's talking, and I want to find a nice wife and make lots of kids. No way in hell I'm letting you crush my ass. I'd rather die with my manhood intact than live my life without my ass," he yelled out, then dramatically ripped open his shirt as the background changes to the ocean waves crashing against the rocks, the sun shining behind him, which blinded the redhead slightly. She was taken aback by his determination for a brief moment. While she wouldn't forgive him for her humiliation, she wouldn't deprive him of the chance to defend himself and his ass. Very well, then I will give you a sporting chance if you defeat me in a duel. I shall acknowledge you and become your woman, but if you lose to me, then I shall claim your testicles and crush them into paste in front of the whole school. She spoke, issuing her challenge to him. A crash of thunder occurred in the background in a dramatic fashion as the two stared each other down. This was going to get ugly. Elsewhere, "Yay, we're bringing lunch to senpai, bringing lunch to senpai. Lunchy munchy hore," yelled Shiro as she bounced around excitedly. Behind her were the forms of Claire and Lucy, their faces a hard mask of indifference. But inwardly they were wondering where the albino got her energy from. Was it because of all the cookies and sugary snacks she ate? Shiro turned to her companions and asked, Shiro's curious, "Why do you two want to bring lunch to senpai? You never go outside. Could it be you like senpai?" If her question got a reaction put of the two, they didn't show it. "Don't be silly, Shiro-san. I just decided to make him this lunch since he didn't have the time to make any himself and I didn't want him to starve," Lucy replied in a curt manner, adjusting the hat on her head which concealed her trademark horns. Claire nodded in agreement since she had already gotten what she wanted from Naruto. She just came to ensure that Lucy didn't have an outburst in the middle of Konoha. As for Shiro, she just came of her own volition, and once she had her mind set to something, there was little that could be done to dissuade the albino girl. Okay, but Shiro still thinks you like senpai. Shiro likes senpai too. Shiro wants him to stay with us forever and ever, she yelled out in joy. Her companions simply chose to ignore her for the moment. They were more concerned about the odd looks they were receiving. While people generally leave them alone, they didn't want to attract attention to themselves, especially with Lucy being one of the more aggressive members of the home. "Shiro, calm down. You're making people look at us," spoke Claire with a sharp edge to her voice. The white-haired girl stopped in her tracks and whimpered a bit, but then nodded in understanding. She didn't want to get her friends into any kind of trouble, or make trouble. They continued on without incident and arrived at the academy where a crowd of students gathered outside. They scanned the crowd for Naruto but couldn't find him anywhere. Amongst the students they heard murmurs that the dead last of their academy was going to fight with the new transfer student. They then saw Naruto in a sparring ring staring down a girl with crimson hair. What was he doing? Was he confessing to her or something? Lucy's eyes narrowed slightly. An emotion she hadn't felt for a long time began to form in her heart. Jealousy. Why did she feel like this? She hadn't known him for but a few short minutes and had barely even spoken to him. Was there something wrong with her? Then again, her DNA voice has been silent as of late. Was there a connection? "Naruto Uzumaki, I shall now lay claim on your family jewels," Riaz yelled while pointing a finger at the whiskered teen. The three patients had question marks form on their heads. This girl. What was she talking about? Family jewels. Did Naruto have a hidden cache of jewels or something? "And I already told you that I would rather die than let you crush them," Naruto yelled back with a sneer. More question marks appeared from the three. Was this girl planning on destroying Naruto's treasures? They didn't fully understand the situation but still believed that it could prove interesting. In the background, Iruka himself didn't understand what was going on, but apparently the new girl was angry about Naruto trying to molest her. From what he understood at least. Now she wanted a revenge match to put the boy in his place. If this meant the Kyuubi brat would be knocked down a few more pegs, then so much the better. The scarred Chunin called for the match to begin and both Riaz and Naruto took on readied stances. Although Naruto's was a rather sloppy version of the Academy Taijutsu. Riaz narrowed her eyes slightly, noting that his stance was all wrong and imbalanced. Was he trying to trick her? Was it some kind of ploy to make her carelessly attack him? She wouldn't fall for his tricks so easily this time. Naruto, however, could tell this girl had some training in hand-to-hand combat. He knew that she'd beat him in 2 seconds flat if he charged her. But what was she waiting for? It was obvious she saw through his subpar training and skill. Was she trying to psyche him out? Make him lose his nerve? He wouldn't fall for her mind games. Everyone waited with bated breath, wondering who was going to make the first move. And first fatal error. Shiro in her impatience yelled out, "Go for it, senpai, kick that girl's ass, defend your family jewels." At her yell, both Naruto and Riaz turned and saw the three patients at the back of the crowd. "Claire, Lucy, Shiro, what are you all doing out here?" he asked them, surprised by their presence at the academy. Lucy blushed slightly. She felt a sense of warm and fuzzy feelings when she found herself in Naruto's presence again. Then she randomly blurted out without thinking, "Don't get the wrong idea or anything. We brought you a bento so you wouldn't starve. Now hurry up and take." She held out the bento like it was some kind of offering, her face reddening deeper as Naruto was giving her a wide-eyed expression. "You brought me lunch?" he asked while tearing up. No one had ever done anything so nice for him before. Ever. Even the various students and the teachers couldn't believe that a cute girl was bringing lunch to the dobe. Riaz, however, had a somewhat different line of thought. She pointed an accusatory finger at the pinkette and called out, "You with the bento, are you this hentai's waifu?" At her question, Lucy tilted her head. Then it registered what the redhead was asking her. "Though I barely even know him, I said less than 15 words to him," the horned woman yelled out in complete denial, somewhat irked that this girl hurled such a wild accusation. "Don't lie to me. This lecher used his weird seduction techniques on you. He ravaged you till he broke your mind, and you can't live without him," the devil girl called out. the random accusation now having made the situation even more bizarre. I don't even know what you're talking about. This isn't a hentai manga. Are you some kind of weird pervert? Lucy asked angrily. She was now very much tempted to unleash her vectors and silence this girl. Naruto thanked his lucky stars that the heavens had sent a distraction. Now might be his one and only chance to defeat Rias and protect his S. He charged at her and thrust his fist forward. However, she saw his attack in her peripheral vision just in the nick of time to release her wings and fly off into the air. The students all cheered at her usage of what they thought was an interesting jutsu. Then their faces turned red. The girls all screamed Kaya while the boys got nosebleeds and passed out all over the ground. Urka and Mizuki both looked up as well, and exploded out from their nostrils, sending them flying away into blissful states of unconsciousness. What is wrong with these people? Is there some kind of what the? Rias whispered to herself, and took notice of something in Naruto's hand. It appeared to be a pair of torn panties. When did he get those? A light bulb blinked over her head and then shattered as she felt around under her skirt. Her panties were missing. He must have torn them off when she flew into the air, and everyone had seen her without her panties. At the sudden realization, she passed out from shock and fell to the ground, her eyes taking on the form of swirls when she hit the ground. Wow, Senpai defeated that girl without even touching her. So cool, Shiro yelled out excitedly. She didn't notice the panties in the Jinchuriki's hand. Neither did Claire or Lucy. However, the events that transpired further piqued their interest in Naruto. In a slight panic, the blonde boy pocketed the torn panties into his lab coat and then turned to the three with a nervous smile and asked a little help, please. Later at the home for troubled women, the full-ed devil awoke in unfamiliar surroundings. She quickly sat up and found herself in some kind of room where various women were partaking in activities such as pool, playing cards, shogi, and the occasional reader. Oh, she's awake now, called out a familiar male voice. Rias turned and saw Naruto sitting at a table, evidently playing cards with some of the females here. She got up from the couch she was planted on and approached him with an angry look in her eyes. For a moment, he thought she might try to outright kill him, but then noticed her expression softened a bit. She sighed in a defeated manner and spoke to him. Naruto Uzumaki, I accept my loss. Despite your underhanded methods, they weren't against the rules. I shall keep my promise and be your woman. At this, Leon Wolf whistled and teased her fellow blonde. Damn, when Shiro told us about your, what was it called? Oh yeah, manly fight to protect your family jewels, I thought she was kidding. Those jewels must be real special, huh? And you even have a cute redhead as your woman. The Jinchuriki chuckled nervously and merely nodded. He wasn't about to tell them that he was fighting her to protect his testicles from a girl who employed her S for attempted murder. The devil girl then turned and pointed at Lucy, who was reading from a book at the time. And you dare come near my man again. I will not accept you as his waifu. Hey, waifu? The various patients asked, wondering what the redhead meant by that. Lucy looked about at her fellow patients and spoke with a small blush. It's nothing. Just a misunderstanding. The red-haired devil scoffed and asked, what is this place? A prison. Naruto, are you a doctor here? Are these your patients? Where is all the other staff? Naruto scratched at his head, wondering how he was possibly going to tell her about all this. How would she even react? Before he could open his mouth, a loud buzzing noise came. That's strange. That's the buzzer for when someone's at the door. Seems like we have a visitor. Robin commented and explained what the buzzing was for at the same time. Gaining a curious expression, Naruto went towards the front door. On a small screen adjacent to the door that was connected to a camera outside, showed a woman dressed all in black holding a slip of paper. He pushed the speaker button to communicate with her and spoke. Hello. Can I help you? If she was surprised by the voice of a young boy, she didn't show it. Or maybe she thought the speaker made his voice sound different. She cleared her throat and showed the paper. From the looks of it, it appeared to be a newspaper ad for employment. Yes, I'm here about the legal representative position. Is it still available? She asked almost desperately. On closer inspection, she didn't appear to be in good health. Her hair was dirty and greasy, her cheeks were somewhat sunken in, and her clothes looked quite ragged too. Give me one moment please, he replied and ran back to the home's patients and explained the situation to them. They all looked at each other, all equally confused on the matter. We didn't put out any kinds of flyers. But well, I guess if there's no employees here, this place is little more than a hideout for us. Ladies, I vote that we should legitimize our home and make Naruto the manager. All in favor? Annie asked, proving to be a voice of reason. All at once, they raised their hands in unanimous agreement. Though in Kuroko's case she could only yell I since she was still in a straitjacket. I'm flattered and all that good stuff. But why me? He asked, since he wondered why they so easily agreed to this. They had only met a short time ago. Mostly because you didn't run away or call us freaks. And you aren't scared of us, Siko answered in a blunt manner. Okay then, if this lady's gonna be working here, how much was that stipend exactly? We'll need to pay her. At his question, Shoko brushed aside a lock of her hair and presented a small folder, revealing she was the one handling the money. When the blonde boy looked inside, his eyes bugged out at the unbelievable amount. That is a stipend. That's a goddamn fortune, he yelled out in shock. No kidding. We don't even know what to spend it all on. And we don't want to spend too much and attract unwanted attention because of a money trail. Yuno commented with a small smile, making the whiskered teen sweat drop again. These women were way too casual and well-adjusted. He decided now might be a good time to legitimize the place and start recruiting some staff. A legal representative might be a good start. He went back to the front door and flipped on the speaker, which crackled to life, quickly gaining the attention of the black-haired woman who was twisting the flyer in her hands quite anxiously. "Sorry for the wait. I am new with this stuff. What's your name, ma'am?" He spoke out. When he asked about her name, a pained look came across her face. She turned her head to the side and whispered something. "What was that? I didn't hear you." He spoke with a raised eyebrow, wondering why she was reluctant to share her name. She bit her lip nervously and finally answered him, "Naomi Misora." The name struck a familiar chord in the Jinchuriki's memory. He then remembered she was a fairly famous lawyer that specialized in cases involving shinobi. Some people called her the Kunoichi lawyer since she used to be a jonin from Kyusa. But after some big scandal, she was then fired and her reputation went down the toilet. Because of his silence, Naomi started to burst into tears and began sobbing. "Please, I need this job. I have nowhere to go. I lost everything, my fiancé, my home, everything. No one wants to hire me because of what I did. You must understand. This is my last chance. I can't go home or to Kyusa. Please, I'll do anything," she begged desperately. She knew this was absolutely pathetic of her, and far from the ideal method of impressing an employer. But her heart couldn't take much more of this pain. She had bottled up her sorrows for weeks, and the floodgates had now opened. "Well, lady, you don't need to cry like that. I was just about to hire you," Naruto yelped through the comm to calm the distraught woman. She choked back a gasp and covered her mouth with her hand. She bowed while apologizing profusely. "I am so sorry for that shameful display. That was unprofessional. Hey, don't worry about it. It was nothing compared to the day I had. Come on in," he replied, then unlocked the door, permitting her entry. She came inside and looked down at the blonde. A small smile came onto her face as she patted his head. "Hello there. Where's your father, sweetie? Did he ask you to let me in for him?" she asked, ignorant of the fact that Naruto was the one she had been speaking to. He crossed his arms and replied, "Lady, I was the one talking to you through that." He pointed at the screen that was now blank. She recognized his voice. She believed at first that the speaker was malfunctioning and was making the voice on the other end sound younger. She wasn't expecting a young teenager to be the one that hired her. Her tongue stuck in her throat. She couldn't for the life of her figure out how to answer him. She was surprised when he merely smiled at her and spoke, "Don't worry, Nameson. Welcome to Sanctuary. I'll call this place Sanctuary. A place where people of troubled mind can find some peace. Come on, I'll introduce you to everyone." With that said, he took her by the hand to meet the exceptionally quirky and unstable residents. Days later, "More paperwork for you," spoke Riaz as she adjusted a pair of reading glasses. Since Naruto became the manager of the now renamed Sanctuary, the devil took it upon herself to become his secretary since she was, in essence, his fiancée. She did a marvelous job of sorting and prioritizing the work that needed to be done. Anything unnecessary was tossed into the trash. So far, the work has been pretty straightforward, putting out flyers for more staff members and the like. They'll only officially announce the presence of their patients when the staff is ready. He stretched out his limbs out. He had been working hard for some time now. Once he was done with setting up Sanctuary, he'd need to start spending more time with his patients in order to better know and understand them. "Thanks, Riaz," he replied to her, thankful that she had at least stopped attempting to crush his S. In fact, since the academy incident, two things happened. First, he stopped going to classes of his own volition to help with Sanctuary. And second, he noticed that he had a surprisingly positive effect on the female populace. "Naruto-kun, I brought snacks," yelled the voice of Yuno. The pinkette carried in a tray of cookies with a glass of warm milk to go with it. This wasn't uncommon, since the ladies would do this kind of thing for them. He actually felt a little bit spoiled by all the attention he was receiving. "Yuno, I told you already that I would be handling Naruto-kun's snacks. I'm his fiancé now." The red-haired devil spoke in jealousy. She didn't want to share him with other women, and she wasn't going to hand him over to anyone. Both Yuno and Riaz glared at each other, creating a tense atmosphere. "Naruto, tell her to back off," they both yelled in unison while pointing at each other. Naruto's reaction was to look up from his paperwork and ask them, "You say something?" At his response, their eyebrows twitched angrily. They both left the new office with a huff, not wanting to be in each other's presence. The blonde sighed since he could finally get some peace and quiet, which was then interrupted by the rattling of a vent cover coming loose. It was then kicked open by a pale white foot that could only belong to Shiro. With impressive flexibility, she managed to squeeze through the vent and land next to Naruto. She gave him a wide smile and greeted in a joyful tone, "Hi, Senpai. Shiro is so happy you stayed." Shiro can tell. The others are happy too. Claire is talking more, and Lucy isn't as mean now. Shiro doesn't know what Senpai did, but Senpai has really changed things here. With a giggle, she jumped up and sat in his lap. She took notice of the snacks left behind and began to greedily gobble them up. Naruto didn't seem to care, since Shiro's bubbly attitude had a way of bringing a little sunshine or joy into his heart. "Senpai, do you promise to take good care of us?" she asked with a slightly different tone in her voice, her snowy white hair shadowing her eyes. "Yes, I promise. You people have actually treated me better than anyone normal. I won't let anything bad happen," he promised her while rubbing the top of her head. "That's good. If you didn't care about us, Senpai, then I'd strangle you," she replied with a sickly sweet smile that sent chills down his spine. He hadn't seen Shiro act this way. Perhaps something more sadistic was lurking underneath her bubbly attitude. He merely shrugged and resumed his paperwork, until a knock came at his door, making his eye twitch. It seemed like the universe kept on shoving things into his face out of the blue. He called for the person to enter, revealing it to be Naomi. Since her arrival, she now appeared much healthier due to her taking regular showers and having more hearty meals. She now wore a black business suit with pinstripes. She held a folder in her hands and presented it to the blonde. Some things just came up. I took the liberty of changing your mailing address, and so far I have received repeated mails from Haruka Yumino complaining about your absence. And just recently, this came in the mail for you. She presented an envelope. His eyes widened on recognition of the handwriting, prompting him to rip it open and read the contents of it. My God, he whispered as the letter slipped from his fingers and fell to the desk. What's wrong? Asked Naomi in worry. She picked up the letter and read it over. It seemed like someone had taken a point pen and then dabbed it in. From what she could make out, it seemed like a cry for help. How should we handle this? She asked as she slowly began to grasp the situation. There's a certain woman out there that needs our help, and that's what we're going to give her, he answered, his eyes flashing crimson for a brief moment. This needed to be resolved and quickly, before word reached the civilian council. He wouldn't let her become a victim again. Okay, sadly the chapter is over, and if you enjoyed, just leave a like, and subscribe with post notification, so when the next chapter is ready, you will be notified. Okay, see you in the next video. Bye.